Good morning, this is Faith at Faith&books. Happy Mother's Day. It's just a few minutes after 7 a.m. and it's chilly out. It's 45 degrees out. And it's only supposed to go up into the 50s, I think, and rainy too, off and on. Anyway, you might be able to hear my chickens there. They want me to feed them, but I'm going to do this first. So I'm just going to do an update and going to talk about how I sort of am accidentally maybe Midrash. But the first thing I wanted to do was do a shout out about a podcast that I just discovered that someone I've been online friends with for at least 12 years, maybe more. She and her husband started this podcast called Literary Italy, and I'll put the link below. I'm trying to, get the word out. They've only done, sorry about the plane, they've only done 3 episodes so far, I think. They did Dante, Boccaccio, and Petrarch so far. But they're really interesting. I don't know if I have my facts exactly right, but I think that she has a doctorate in classical studies or something, Renaissance studies. And I know she's lived in Italy at least 3 times. And she's traveled to Italy many times. And I think that for a while she was an adjunct professor at Rutgers, but that didn't pay well enough, so I think she wound up becoming a doula or a midwife or something, because she has 4 children of her own, and I know her through homeschooling. She's an unschooler. She and her husband met at St. John's College in Annapolis, which is the Great Books College. So anyway, she's just got a wonderful personality. She's really funny and witty, and she and her husband have a great repartee, and they know a lot about Italy, and they know a lot about literature, and so the podcast is just sort of a light, fun discussion based around some literary work of literature or of writing, and then the places that are associated with that person, and then just the culture of the place, the food, or maybe the experiences that Anne and her husband Jim had visiting that place. So it's a really fun podcast, and I think it would really interest people who are doing the Dante read-along. So I'm going to put that link below. The other thing I wanted to talk about was that Tom of LA Books, apparently, I didn't know this, but apparently adapted a graphic book. I don't know if it's a novel or what, but I think it's called Faith and Science, and it was featured in the live stream discussion that was hosted by Noah at, now I always get the name wrong, Everyone Who Reads Must Converse. And I know Christy from Dostoevsky in Space, and there was one other person whose name is suddenly escaping me. I just subscribed to his channel, and then Tom LA Books, and they were discussing that. And I want to apologize to Steve Donahue because I just stumbled across it. I wasn't planning on watching it, and I just happened to get online and notice it. And so I started listening because I had a few minutes. And then Steve Donahue got in and was arguing, like, atheists versus believers in faith and science, about faith and science. And I started to have a discussion with him. But then I had to leave because every Wednesday at 6 I have a meeting with my other sisters and my sister with Down syndrome's caretakers. So I had to get off so I just left Stephen lurch. So I'm sorry. Though I have to say, I find discussions of that depth really unsatisfying online in comment boxes. I just don't think it's the appropriate place to have that sort of discussion. I don't think you can have anything of real meat. But anyway, I apologize to Steve for just sort of, having to dash off and just as a discussion was getting going. Anyway, but I have found that I am accidentally doing maybe Midrash. I did not intend to do it. I don't even have a May TBR. It's just flowing out of what I was already reading in April, which is flowing out of what I was already reading in March. So I haven't been that organized or that in control of my reading right now. But it just turns out that I'm just doing a lot of religiously oriented stuff. And so maybe I am accidentally doing maybe Midrash. So let me talk about what I am doing. So I am, well, first of all, I just finished Dantes Inferno. So I'm about 9 days behind everyone else in the Dante read-along, because they were reading this in April, and now right now they're reading Purgatorio, which my last video I pronounced it Purgatio or something, but it's Purgatorio or Purgatory. And I'm going to start this one probably on Tuesday, which I'm excited to do, but I just finished this up, and I mean, is enjoyed the right word, because he's talking about the most gruesome things. As Dante, on his journey with Virgil as his guide through the rings of hell, the circles of hell, as he descends, things get grosser and more grotesque and more repugnant and perverse, and it really gets to be quite disgusting, and bleh, it's just gross. So I can't say I enjoy it at the end. It's you're going to read disgusting stuff, but it certainly shows how the tawdriness and the sordidness and the perversity of evil. And Dante, he puts as you descend through the circles, you get down to the bottom where Lucifer is and where the worst sinners are. And for each circle, he's describing the punishments. There's various punishments, and they get more and more gross and disgusting as they go further down. And he puts sort of at the top, like, I don't remember all the sins for every ring, but the top is more like crimes or sins of passion, like lust or wrath, because it's because you've lost self-control. But it's not premeditated, and for Dante, it's the premeditated sins where you have to plan your treachery that are more evil. And you're traveling down, and then when you get to the eighth, I think it's the eighth circle, he has 10, like within the eighth circle there are 10 ditches or these circular pouches. I don't know how they're described. I mean, that's how this guy interprets. They're called different things, but so you have to you have to cross through all these different pits in the Earth's eighth circle, and that takes quite a while to get through. And then the ninth is the last, the bottom, where it's sort of the center of the Earth, where then he gets to start back up again towards the stars. So sorry, spoilers. I found it really interesting. I started taking some notes, but since I'm doing just an overall update, I'm not going to get into too much detail. But I have to say, the one thing that I really quarreled with Dante about was the fourth ditch of the Malebolge, which is what Anthony Isolin calls it. And in the fourth ditch, that's when he puts all the diviners, is that how you say that? Diviners, the soothsayers and the mediums and the sort of occult type of seance type people. And I found this kind of unfair because it's all a mashup. So he's got people from the ancient legends and myths, and then he's got people from actual Roman history. And then he's got people from his own current time, or maybe just slightly before his era, that he knows about. And he knows they've committed treachery. Like he really goes after a lot of the church, the corrupt in the church and the corrupt in Florence. And then he brings in other, so it's a mix-up of, mythical and actual. people, and he puts people who are from ancient times, into this fourth ditch in the eighth circle, and I just don't think that's fair because first of all they couldn't be saved, right? Because they're what he's doing is he's treating them like not virtuous ancients. Like Virgil was virtuous, so he gets to be in limbo. So he's right before you descend to hell. And that's where virtuous pagans go, according to Dante, not according to church teaching. But but these people, he sees them as deceptive, except that was how they practiced their faith. I mean, they really did believe in going to the oracle at Delphi, and that you could read the future in the stars, or that sort of thing, or there'd be signs and omens. An eagle flying over meant something was going to happen, and that sort of thing. So I just thought that was kind of unfair that he stuck them in hell because they were actually following, unless they were using it to just deceive, but it didn't seem apparent to me. So I thought that was a little unfair, and I have a quibble with Dante about that one, because I don't think it's as premeditated as he's saying it is. And then he gets really, really, most of the punishments get really, really grotesque, but then he sort of stops, and he's got this one really just eerie, where he's talking to these flames. I didn't quite get that one. Why? I think it was for the hypocrites. Was that for the hypocrites? I don't remember. But anyway, that one, instead of it being evil counselors, okay, I did not understand that, why their punishment was sort of being buried with these flames, and the only thing that Dante could talk to were the flames. I just didn't get that one. And it wasn't as grotesque. Like the one before was really grotesque, and the one after was really gross and disgusting, and then that one was not. I just didn't get that one. But anyway, he finally descends and gets to Lucifer, and then they finally escape, and they see the stars, and now they're going to start climbing up towards heaven. So that's great. Now I'm going to start this one, like I said, on Tuesday. So I'm excited about that. The other thing that I'm doing is keeping up with my Bible reading. We've just gotten to the part in 2 Samuel where David commits adultery with Bathsheba and has Uriah the Hittite, her husband, killed in battle. He makes sure he gets killed in battle. So that's going really, really well. And this is sparking a real interest in the Old Testament. And so while I'm doing that, reading a lot of the Old Testament in the Bible in the year thing that I'm doing this year, I've also, and I haven't mentioned this much, I don't think, I've also been reading this with my husband every Saturday, every Sabbath. We've been reading Judaism's Life-Changing Ideas, a weekly reading of the Jewish Bible by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who just passed away in 2020. And so I don't know if we've done it every single Saturday, but most of the time we do. And this is actually Midrash. He's taking an idea or a story or a bit of wisdom from, the Jewish Old Testament or the Torah, and then he's talking about it and applying it to modern life. And so this is actually Midrash. And so this is really interesting too. So this is something that I'm doing. That's sort of a religious bent. I don't know, was the theme of maybe Midrash this year faith and science? Was that a theme, or did that just happen to be the trajectory that Noah and others went off on? I'm not sure, because I did not intend to participate. Another thing that I'm reading that is this is the application of religious text to everyday life and ethics, basically how to live in a way that promotes human flourishing. And this too, I'm reading The Strength to Love by Martin Luther King, and I read the second chapter and had my book club last Tuesday. And this is what I plan to read tonight and tomorrow night. I'm going to read chapter 3 on being a good neighbor. And this is, Martin Luther King's essays on, how how he sees scripture applied to Christian nonviolence and the way to love, to want to change the world for better, is to apply these Christian principles basically to the public square to bring about a more just society. And so this is very profound too, and it draws very deeply from scripture and other classical learning. He was really classically educated. I did not know that he got his doctorate from Boston University. That's where my son and my daughter-in-law work. So that's pretty cool. So this is another thing that's kind of the nonfiction of, I mean, these two things are kind of midrash, because it's relying on scripture, writing about scripture, trying to comprehend it and making commentary on it and how it applies to our lives, our everyday lives. So that's that. And then I had a really bad reading week with Victor Hugo. When he's good, he's excellent. And then a lot of times he's just a windbag. And he's just this overwrought, overly romantic, verbose windbag. And he just goes on and pontificates about things that he happens to be in a passionate mood about. And he's very opinionated, and it's just really, really heavy with references to, to me, and I think now obscure political things, and there's, all these French names of people I've never heard of, and he just goes on and on and on. And I can see why they abridged this to just get to the story. I mean, he's really tiresome. I'm starting to find him very tiresome. So when he gets to the narrative, I really enjoy it and I can't put it down. But then you have to work for that. You're tormented for, 50 pages or so trying to get back to the narrative. So where am I here? Well, this was only 30 pages. My last update, I was up to page 501 or something. I struggled this week. My goal was to read another 100 pages. I got up to page 534. I mean, he just went on and on about the gamin of Paris, the neglected children of the urchins of the streets of Paris and what they represent. And I mean, I didn't even know what he was talking about. And just page after page of this. And then he talks about Paris, and he gets very chauvinistic in the patriotic sense about how great Paris is, the greatest city in the world, and he just waxes on and on about that. And then he's always trying to justify the revolution and Napoleon. And then and it's high-flung language that just, I don't really know what he's getting at. I only have like the dimmest idea of what he's actually talking about. And then he likes to be very obscure about when he gets to talk about people. His modus operandi is to describe them, and then at the end he'll say, and it was so-and-so, and it'll be somebody related to the narrative. So he got back to what's their name? I forget, the people who took in Cosette, but were very cruel to her, the innkeepers, and they basically abandoned their son. They only liked their two daughters. The father didn't care about anybody, but the mother didn't. She loved her daughters and doted on them in a very, dysfunctional way, and then she kind of neglected her son and rejected him, and so he's become one of these street urchins. So we've met him, and then we've met this, I think he's just sort of symbolic of the bourgeoisie, this, what's his name, the guy? Guy Normand, Gillenormand. So I think it's pronounced Monsieur Guy Normand. And he's almost 100, and he's quite a character, but he's not an appealing character. He's got sort of an audacity and a flair to him, but he's actually quite a petty, egotistical person. So he's not a pleasant person to learn about. And we're just learning about his grandson. We've gone on and on for chapters about him, and now we're learning about his grandson. Somehow his grandson is going to play into the narrative too. But it's been quite a slog getting to page 534. So I didn't get very far in this at all. So I feel a bit defeated about this one. And then I have been enjoying The Romance of the Shop by Amy Levy. And it's quite easy to read. It's much lighter, but it's an interesting story. It's about these four sisters who open up a photography studio. And this was published in 1885. So it's quite much easier to read, and it's quite an interesting story. I like her writing style a lot. And I think I will try to look out. I had never heard of her before, but she published more. This was her first book, but she published more. So I would like to read more of her stuff after I'm done with this one. So this is sort of like the easy read that I'm doing right now. I feel very bogged down. I'm committed to the Dante thing. I'm feeling discouraged about this. But I'm sort of missing, like, I'm remembering that I was going to do May is for Magazine, and it's May, and I'm nowhere near that, and it's just not going to happen. And I was going to read the next book in the Swallows and Amazon series, which I think is the Coup Club, and I'm probably not going to get to that. So I'm feeling a little bogged down by all these commitments I've made. I always bite off more than I can chew because I'm too busy in my everyday life to have, like, I just don't have hours to read. And so it just slows me down. And I'm feeling a little discouraged this week. Anyway, but I am enjoying Amy Levy's The Romance of the Shop. That's a good one. And it's so much, she writes in a much clearer style and I'm appreciating that she's less verbose, because the last Victorian novel I read was Bleak House, which, was kind of like this guy. They just, oh my gosh, they just really were self-important. And then the last thing I want to mention is that I had to run into the drugstore, and we had this really nice independent drugstore. It's nice that it's not a chain, and it's been run by the same family. Like, I think the grandson is now running this pharmacy that's been in the town I lived outside of, and they have really nice book selection. And I was just in there waiting, and I saw this book, and I just bought it on an impulse because I've heard about this guy, but actually in a negative way. But it made me think, I've heard negative stuff about this guy. Maybe I should just read something. Because even the people who are saying negative stuff, and the people I'm talking about are Glenn Lowry and John McWhorter, they do concede that he was a really good writer. And my son's read stuff by him, my oldest son, I think. So anyway, so at some point, not right now, but at some point, I want to read this, and maybe I'll be looking for a buddy reader, somebody to buddy read it with me. I don't know. But anyway, I'm intrigued by the author, and I want to have a first-hand experience with him so I can judge for myself whether I like him or not. But what's exciting today, since it is Mother's Day, is my youngest daughter is home from college. We just moved her out of her dorm yesterday, and today for Mother's Day, after we go to Mass, we are going to go out to breakfast to this crepe place where you can get really good gluten-free crepes, and then we're going to go thrift shopping. I haven't been thrifting since, before Corona shut everything down last March. So, not this March, but the past March. So I'm very excited, and I'm going to buy some books. So I have not been secondhand book shopping in a long time. So I'm probably going to have a haul later this week, and I am going to try to do a tag. I'm gonna record a tag and do a book haul this week. I'm determined. So, all right. So that is my update. And once again, I was long-winded. 24 minutes. That's crazy. And my chickens are really hungry. They're like they have a metal feeder. They're knocking that around. So I better go feed them. So anyway, happy Mother's Day if you're a mother, or if you have a mother, or, whatever. I hope you have a great Sunday. I hope you're well. Take care, and happy reading. Bye.